Numbers 13, starting in verse 1. I'm going to give you a little context, a little bit of where the story starts. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers you shall send a man, every one a leader among them." Right? So, the background of the story is, God has called Moses to lead the children out of Israel. Right? They're Israelites, they're in bondage in Egypt, and He leads them out. Right? A whole other story, and you can watch the Ten Commandments movie if you want the short version. But here, God calls them out of slavery. Now they're out wandering the wilderness. He said, I'm going to take you into a land called Canaan. That's the promised land. That's what He promised to put them. Right? Where milk and honey flows, where they were going to be able to be provided for, and be able to live and stay, feed a whole army of people. There was like 1 million of these Israelites wandering through the desert. Okay? So it wasn't like the 12 guys on the Lord of the Rings. This was like a nation walking through the desert. So God says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to send spies into Canaan, and I want you to see what's going on in the land. I want you to see who's in there, who's already occupying where I'm putting you. And I want you to see what's there for you to get. What's the land like? What's the produce like? What the conditions are like. Right? I want you to go in, and I want you to see what's going on. This is God is speaking to Moses. Right? So He picks one person from every tribe. There's 12 tribes of the Israelites. And He picks one from each. And one from the tribe of Judah, his name is Caleb. Right? Now, just coincidentally, Judah, the word Judah means praise. Right? Now, this don't mean much to you now because you don't really know what Judah or what Caleb does yet. But Judah means praise. He came from the tribe of Judah. Judah means praise. Praise is an outward expression of an inward devotion, of an inward love, of an inward worship to God. Right? So, this was not in my message this morning, but a real quick difference between praise and worship. All right? Praise and worship often get intertwined, and a lot of things can envelop praise, and a lot of things can envelop worship. Worship is simply you loving on God. Right? You directly to Him. Doesn't matter if there's anyone around. Doesn't matter if it's quiet, if it's sincere, if it's in your heart. If you're just pleasing God for Him, then that's worship. But if you're doing something so that others know how good He is to you, that's praise. Whether it's you lifting your hands, whether it's you clapping, whether it's you shouting, whether it's you talking about how good He is at work, and you're telling your coworkers, this is how good my God is. That's praise. So it's outward. It's an outward thing, an outward expression. So here is Caleb from the tribe of Judah. Now, like I said, it don't mean a whole lot yet. Just hang tight. Just remember that. So down to verse 17. He tells all the people that they picked to go. Right? Joshua is also one. Caleb, Joshua, and then 10 others. So, down in verse 17. Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said to them, "Go up this way into the south, go up to the mountains, see what the land is like, whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, few or many, whether the land they dwell in is good or bad, whether the cities they inhabit are like camps or strongholds, whether the land is rich or poor, whether there are forests there or not. Be of good courage, and bring some of the fruit of the land." Now the time was the season of the first ripe grapes. Right? So that kind of was telling you what I was saying. He tells them, go in, see what everything's like. There's people already living in your land. Right? Sometimes the things that God promises is not just an easy fix. Right? God says, there, I promised you this land. What they could have done is come up to the land and said, well, God, you promised us that land, but there's already people living there. All right? Now we're just stuck here. God says, no. Sometimes you have to defeat enemies to overtake the land I'm promising you. Right? Now, not that He sent them in there alone. Right? God go with them. But, so they go in, they spy out the land, and in verse 22, it says they went up to the south, came to Hebron, Ehimon. I'm probably doing horrible pronouncing these. Shishai, Talmai, the descendants of Anak were there. Right? That's all it says. The descendants of Anak were there. And verse 23, cut down a branch with one cluster of grapes. And they carried it between two people on a pole. That's how awesome these grapes were. Right? Could you imagine? If I told you to go pick a cluster of grapes, you'd go out and pick a cluster and you'd carry it in, maybe with a little bag or just in your hand. They picked a cluster, they took it off the branch, they just brought the branch with it. And they carried it between two of them. That's how awesome the grapes were. Right? Great grapes. I'm going to say that a lot just because there's two G's there. Great, they were great grapes. Alright? So, they carried between two. They also brought some of the pomegranates and figs. The place was called the Valley of Eshcol because of the cluster which the men of Israel cut down there. And they returned from spying out the land after 40 days. Now, what we don't know yet, and what I'm going to tell you, is that the descendants of Anak were big men, were giants, right? At this time, they're like, these guys are huge. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I wanted to just tell you. When God promises you great grapes, there's probably great giants in the way. Right? I mean, God doesn't just give an easy battle to his tough warriors. Are you with me? If remember the story of Goliath? Goliath wasn't going to fight anyone unless it was their best warrior. He's like, you're going to send this little puny boy out to me? Send me your best. I'm the best. I'm here to fight the best. So when you have a great promise, a great thing that God is wanting to give you, there's a great devil that's going to be trying to keep you from getting you. Right? Haven't you ever heard the expression, a new level means a new devil? Right? We often look at that. We're like, well, I'm going to go to a new level and the devil's going to fight me. What we need to do is look at it in reverse. Man, I'm going through a huge fight. I got this new devil, this new obstacle, this new thing that's right at me. What we need to say is there must be something great on the other side of this, and I'm going to persevere through this great devil to get to my great grapes. Right? We often look at it the wrong way. And we say, man, look how big those grapes are, but look at the giants keeping me from them. Right? We're focusing on this thing in front of us, keeping us from what we want, which is not willing to go for it. Right? What we should say is, there's some mighty giants in my way, but there's some even better grapes that's waiting for me on the other side that God has promised me, and I'm going to get my great grapes. I don't know about you, and I always like this, but I brought the preacher man with me this morning. Alright? So I don't care if there's 10 people in here, I'm going to preach like there's about 200. Is that alright? Alright. So here we go. New levels, new devils, and we look at that, we get distracted by the giant. We get distracted by the devil that's facing us, that's opposing us. Man, I would love the great grapes, right? Who wouldn't? But there's something in my way. And I would like to spend some more time on that, but I got to move because I got a lot to get through. So they departed, they go back to Moses, and they're like, all right, Moses, here's the scoop. Verse 27. We went to the land you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey. And the point of the grapes. This is its fruit. Yeah, we brought this from them. Can you imagine us eating this, living off this? Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south. The Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountains. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the banks of the Jordan. Then Caleb. Now, I love Caleb. Right? And he's not in the Bible a whole lot, just a couple chapters. And we're going to, if I can squeeze them in, I want to talk about them all because they're all related. But Caleb quiets the people before Moses and says, let us go up at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it. Now, any posse wants a man like Caleb. Amen? Anyone, any posse, any type of group, organization, they want not just a yes man, but they want a confidence man that says, I don't care what the problem, we can do it. Right? We can do it. Caleb before the Bible said I can do all things through Christ. Right? He's like, listen, I don't care. He's quieting. He's quieting the distraction. He's quieting the negativity. Sometimes that's what you got to do. Sometimes that's what you got to do. It's not necessarily popular. You might make some enemies, which we'll get to. But you got to quiet the negativity. You got to quiet the distraction. And you got to reinforce, I can. We can. We got God on our side. We can get in there and we can whip these guys' tails, butts, whatever is proper. I don't care really what's proper. So, Caleb quiets the people. Right? This is something. We need people like Caleb. Now, we all want someone in Caleb in our group, like Caleb in our group, but sometimes we got to be the Caleb. Right? You might not be Moses, right? Caleb's not the leader. Caleb's not the man at top speaking to God. Are you with me? Caleb is just a man they picked to spy out the land. But when he comes back, he speaks against all the people. Who will stand up and be the voice of truth when others are being the lie? Who will stand up and be against the voice of compromise, against the voice of fear? Who will stand up and be against the voice of reason either? It doesn't make sense sometimes, but who will stand up and be God's voice to the people? Right? You don't have to be a Moses to do that. With me? So, the men who went with Caleb, right, they're not so sure. Right? Verse 31. We are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people whom we saw in it are men of great stature. There we saw the giants. The descendants of Anak came from the giants. And we were like grasshoppers in our own sight. And so we were in their sight. Probably heard this before, but how you see the enemy will correlate how you see yourself. And this is not a self-help moment. I'm talking about what you see with you, inside you. If you see yourself alone, these guys were a nation, but yet these 10 naysayers, they saw themselves alone. They saw themselves just as a nation in the wilderness. And if you see yourself alone, the enemy will scare you off. But if you know, even if you're in the minority, like Caleb and Joshua, who say, if God be for us, then who can be against us? If you know that you're not alone, then nothing will distract you and persuade you from not going in. I know there is a time when we look at ourselves and we say, I'm not able to do that. But in the same breath, we need to say, I can't do it on my own, but I can do it through Christ. I can do it with God. See, because we're not on our own. I love there's this verse, everyone knows, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I can do all things. There's another verse that I love, one of my favorites, John 15:5. It says that He is the vine, we are the branches. We're just connected to Him. And He says, for without Him, we can do nothing. Right? If you picture a vine and a branch can do nothing if it's connected to the vine. So what He's saying is, if without Him, I can't do anything. I am powerless. I am weak. I am susceptible to fall. I am weak. I am going to get bound up. I am going to get defeated. But with Him, I can do it. Right? So these 10 were seeing themselves alone as themselves. These 2 were seeing themselves as themselves with God. I've used this illustration before, but I want to use it again real quickly. If I have to walk down the road and someone gets, I know this is way out there, but if someone gets trapped under a car and I'm walking by myself, I know I probably can't help that person. And I'm going to look, I can't help, I'm sorry, I don't know what to do. But if I'm walking down the same street with Arnold Schwarzenegger and he's with me and I look at the car, I say, hey, with me, I am in him, and we, I throw myself in there with him. He'll lift 1,000 pounds and I'll lift 300. And I say, together, we can lift this car. With me? My confidence is completely different because of who is with me. So, they're like, we can't do it. We see this enemy, they're big. And because they're so big, we are like grasshoppers. And says, so we were in their sight. So they had convinced themselves, we're too small to beat these giants. Right? And even in their eyes, these giants, they know they can whip us because they're bigger than us. Next chapter, Numbers 14, starting in verse 1. The congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. All the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron, and the whole congregation said to them, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in this wilderness. Why has the Lord brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? So they said to one another, let us select a leader and return to Egypt. How would you like that kind of devotion from your people? All right? Moses had already led these people out of bondage. And it was hard work. I'm sure there were many times, that they felt like giving up, that it wasn't going to work. He led them out of bondage and into freedom. It's hard work. And after he did all that for them, through God, they will want to turn on him. Being a leader is not about being popular. Right? They wanted to turn on him, and they wanted to replace him with someone else that will do what they want. But people don't need someone to tell them what they want. They need someone to tell them what they need. These guys would listen to how desperate they are. They would have been happy to already have died in the desert. To come here at the edge of this fight and have the chance to fight for their life. Right? I've done it the last several weeks. I'm going to get on Braveheart again, and I don't mean to. And I'll spare you the accent this morning. But Braveheart, they get to a point where they're going to fight, and they're just outnumbered. They pretty much know they're going to lose. And they're going to turn around and they're going to go home. And William Wallace says it for him. He says, yeah, you can go home and you can sleep and you might live a long life, and 40 years from now you'll be laying in your bed and you'll be getting ready to die. And here's what you're going to think. Would you have traded all those cowardly years of comfort and slavery for just one chance to fight for your freedom? And that's what these guys have it. These guys have the chance to fight for your freedom. Now, I know it's real easy to say that given the chance between freedom and slavery, I'll fight for my freedom. But many times we just get so comfortable, we fall, we are deceived into bondage when we don't even realize it until we're there. Sometimes we don't even realize it when we're there. So they just wanted to, let's just get a new guy. So, verse 5, Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation. Right? They don't know what to do. This is the appropriate response to the people turning against you, is they didn't know what to do. They just fall on their face. But look here again. Moses and Aaron fall on their face, but verse 6, who does it say stands up? Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb. The two who were among those who had spied out the land, they tore their clothes and they spoke to the congregation, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. And verse 8, here's the whole crux of the thing. If the Lord delights in us, then He will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their protection has departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. Right? What an awesome speech. That's the William Wallace speech right there. We can take them. These guys are weak. We're going to conquer them. Right? But except in this part, the people don't stand up and shout for joy. They say, we're going to stone you. Right? Verse 10. They sought to stone him. I love this part. The congregation set to stone them with stones. Now the glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle of meeting before all the children of Israel. Can you imagine? These guys, Moses and Aaron, fall on their face. Then the other two stand up. Joshua and Caleb stand up for God. And they said, all right, we're going to stone you so we can get a new leader. And God just shows up. The glory of God, the weight of God, the presence of God just shows up and interrupts the worst of all situations. Because that's the type of God that we serve. That God can and will interrupt you in the worst of situations. All right? This reminds me of a very similar story in the New Testament when Jesus interrupts a bunch of religious people who are getting ready to stone a woman caught in adultery. And Jesus interrupts them in the worst of situations. She had no hope. She had no legal help. All she had was she's going to get stoned because of adultery. And Jesus steps in and stops the stoning. God speaks to Moses and says, how long are these people going to reject me? How long are they going to rebel against me after everything I've done for them? God pretty much says, here's what's going to happen. This bunch of people, they're not going into the promised land. Alright? They really don't want to go in, even though I'm with them, then they're not going to go in. And this is what Moses intercedes for them. Like, God, please forgive them. They're ignorant. Right? They're not thinking straight. Pardon them, he says in verse 19. Pardon them according to your great mercy. In verse 20, God says, I have pardoned according to your word. He says, but here's what's going to happen. All these men who have seen my glory, but yet have not changed their tune, they're not going into Egypt. He says, but verse 24, look at 24. But my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit in him, and he has followed me fully, I will bring him to the land where he went, and his descendants shall inherit it. Now the Amalekites and the Canaanites dwell in the valley. Tomorrow turn and move out to the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. And look down to verse 30 again. He says, I'm going to come against this congregation, and they're not going in, just their children are going to go in. But verse 30, except for Caleb, the son of whatever that name is, and Joshua, the son of Nun. He says, but your little ones, your kids, your descendants, they will go into the land and inherit what you all were supposed to. See, there is a price to rejecting God. And if you reject Him too long, right, it will cost you. Now, I'm not going to tell you how long that is. Right? Because even these guys, if they would have truly repented at this moment before He rebukes them, if they would have truly repented after many times them hearing it, if they would have repented and said, okay, we're on board with Joshua and Caleb, then God would have welcomed them. He gave them chance after chance after chance, and then he had to hand down judgment. He says, all right, I'm keeping my word. I told you, you all would go into, you all would be the descendants, and I promised you Canaan, but this group's not going in. I'm going to give it to the next group. All right? And here's what happens. Look here. I found this interesting. They were in verse 34. According to the numbers that they went, spied out the land. They were there 40 days spying out the land. He says, so according to that number, that you all went for 40 days and spied out the land and saw how good it was, but yet you wouldn't do it. He says, I'm going to give you guilt for 1 year per day. So for 40 years, you're going to know my rejection. And I'm going to let my people that were with me, they'll go in then. So here they are. This is remarkable. Here they are on the edge. Right? God sends them in to spy out the land to get ready to go in and take it over. And they're getting ready to go in, but because of rebellion, he says, okay, 40 years you're going to wander in the wilderness and not go in. 40 more years. So, verse 36. The men whom Moses sent to spy out the land, who returned, made all the congregation complain against him by bringing a bad report of the land. Those very men who brought the evil report about the land died by the plague before the Lord. But Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, remained alive, of the men who went to spy out the land. It basically comes down to this. This is somewhat of an eternal statement. Right? Which side do you choose? Which report do you believe? Right? Whose lot are you throwing yourself with? Are you going to throw yourself in with Christ? When he says, if you want to follow me, you take up your cross, you deny yourself and you follow me. Or you throw your lot in with the world and you say, I want to do what pleases me and I want to do what everyone else is doing. That's what will bring you happiness. Right? It comes down to a choice of whose side do you want to be on. Now, the story doesn't end there. I want to show you something. Can I show you something real quick? I looked it up. And I was very specific. If you look up all the people doing one thing, and then just the phrase, except Caleb, right? Except Caleb. Where everyone else was doing one thing, except Caleb, he decided to stick with God. It happened, that phrase happens 4 times. Right? Everybody else is doing one thing, except. And Caleb is, like I said, not in the Bible a lot. So 4 occasions it says, except Caleb. He was being different. And then, if you add in the phrase, but Caleb. Like everyone else is doing one thing, but Caleb's doing another. It's 6 more times. 10 times in Scripture. Everybody's doing one thing, except Caleb's doing another. That's the type of people that God wants to bring into the promised land and says, it's just the one person, the exception, the small minority. Everyone else is against them. But they know in who they believe, they know who they trust, and they stick with God no matter what. Let me turn it down. I have kids. How many of you ever saw the movie The Lorax? 2 people. Anyone ever read the book, The Lorax, by Dr. Seuss? Alright, well this will just go over like a lead balloon. You need to watch it. If you have kids, watch it. If you don't have kids, watch it. Just suffer through it. It's got a good premise. And everybody else has just accepted a horrible environment, right? They've cut down all their real trees. They're just, everything's fake. Everything's false. They have glow-in-the-dark trees. Everything's, they have to, their air is so dirty, they have to bottle air, clean air. That's how you have to pay for air, clean air. So everything's just filthy, and it's kind of an environmental thing. And there's one boy who wants to change it, right? And there's one person who can help him change it. There's one person who has the last remaining seed to a tree. And this is what he says. Right? there's a rock that sits beside his house, and on the rock it just says, unless. And so, what's that mean? What's that mean, unless? What's that mean? I don't get it, unless. And the guy says, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. And that's how Caleb was. Nothing was going to get better except Caleb stood for God. If Caleb would have turned away and said, all right, if it's 10 against 2, we surrender. And if our army is not going to be their army, I give up. Unless, except, Caleb says, if it had not been for the Lord on my side, where would I be? Except Caleb. There's a little brief story here in verses 39 through 45. He tells this to the children of Israel, right? And they're going to go up and they're going to take the land that they were promised, right? Remember, the people who were rejected, the people who were told, you can't go in. I'm not going with you. These people said, okay, well, we're just going to make it happen. We're going to go take it, right? Guess what happens to them? They go up the mountain. They try to take over. Verse 44, they presumed to go up to the mountaintop. Nevertheless, neither the ark of the covenant of the Lord nor Moses departed from the camp. Then the Amalekites and the Canaanites who dwelt in the mountain came down and attacked them and drove them back. They tried to do it without God. Well, I lost it, but I'm just going to make it happen out of brute force and determination. God says, not happening. That's kind of a picture like, that's what happens when you go away from God, when you do it apart from Him. So, I got to hurry and skip down through here. Turn to Joshua, chapter 14. Joshua's a couple books over. Joshua chapter 14. I'm almost done. In Joshua chapter 14, God speaks to Moses, right? And they're going to divide the land that they have. And He's going to give it to everyone, right? This is many, many years later. As a matter of fact, it's 45 years later, and I'll tell you why I know that in just a moment. We'll show you. They divide the land. God tells Moses to divide the land among the people, among the tribes. In verse 6, in chapter 14, Joshua. The children of Judah came to Joshua in Gilgal, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, how do you pronounce that? The Kenizzite said to him, you know the word which the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, concerning you and me in Kadesh Barnea. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land. And I brought back word to him as it was in my heart. Nevertheless, my brethren who went up with me made the heart of the people melt, but I wholly followed the Lord my God. So Moses swore on that day, saying, surely the land where your foot has trodden shall be your inheritance and your children's forever, because you have wholly followed the Lord my God. And now, behold, the Lord has kept me alive. And he said, as he said, these 45 years, ever since the Lord spoke this word to Moses while Israel wandered in the wilderness, and now here I am this day, 85 years old. Stop just a moment. Listen to this. Hey, look, 85 years old this man is now. Caleb. He was about 40, evidently, when they were going to attack, right? And he was spry, and he was ready to fight, right? He was strong, he was ready, and he had been put in a good position to say, hey, you were 1 out of 1,000,000, and you 12, we're going to go spy out this land. And Caleb was ready to go. 40 years old. Now he's 85. Many, many years has he just kept wandering in the desert. Verse 11. Yet I am as strong this day as on the day that Moses sent me. Just as my strength was then, so now is my strength for war, both for going out and for coming in. Now therefore give me this mountain of which the Lord spoke in that day, for you heard in that day how the Anakim were, and that the cities were great and fortified. It may be that the Lord will be with me, and I shall be able to drive them out as the Lord said. Caleb, 85 years old, still ready to go kick the people out of his land. The Bible says Joshua blessed him, gave Hebron to Caleb as an inheritance, and therefore became the inheritance of Caleb because he wholly followed the Lord. Caleb, 85 years old, yet he was still as determined and trusting God as ever. Last week I talked about commitment, and I didn't intend to and mean on continuing to talk about commitment, but this is part 2 of commitment. Listen to this. He stayed true, he stayed steadfast, he stayed strong until it was his moment. 45 years later. We shouldn't slow down as we get older. Now, I don't mean that as in, here it's physically. I'm going to talk to you spiritually for a moment. Spiritually, this is usually what happens, right? Many of you can probably attest to this. Many of you will start out, whenever it is that you come to God, maybe you're a teenager, maybe you're a young adult, maybe it was, I don't know, you were in your mid-years. But whenever you came to God, you were a young Christian and you were ready. You were on fire. You were ready like Caleb to take the enemy. Remember? How many of my people am I still speaking to? All right. Remember, man, you got saved. I will do anything. I'll take anything. I'll talk to anyone. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I'll go there. Yes, I'll do that. And we're ready. We're just biting at the bit to go. Right? And then years later, right? A couple years later, maybe, or if you start as a teenager, young, you find you a girlfriend, and then you get married, and then you're all, I gotta keep her happy, or keep him happy, and we've got bills now, and I got a job, and then you have kids somehow, accidentally, I don't know, and then you got kids you gotta take care of, and now you have all these responsibilities. Remember, when you were young, you didn't have the responsibility. You were ready to be daring. Remember? You would race through an underpass, past people. And you would be daring when you were young and had nothing to lose. That's just an inside joke. But you were daring, you remember? How many remember that? You did stuff now, you're looking at it, you're like, I don't know what I was thinking. You had nothing to lose. And then as you get older physically, you got kids, and you got responsibilities, and chores, and bills, and a spouse, then you got to play it safe, right? You got to have a backup plan. You got to have retirement. You got a 401k plan. And you got to have insurance. And all those things I'm not totally speaking against. But I'm saying, where are you putting your faith? See, we start out on fire. Totally just trusting God. And as we get older, we love God. We like having God on our side. But now we trust what we have, or what we do, or we trust our health. I can handle it. We trust ourselves more. Spiritually, we shouldn't slow down as we get older. We should press harder to be uncomfortable, to be stretched, so that God has to meet us where we can't. How do you want your kids to see you? If you have kids, how do you want them to see you? Do you want them to see the on fire, fully trusting God version of yourself when you were younger? Or do you want them to see the retired, compromising, just kind of floating by spiritually person that you were? Do you have to tell your kids, oh man, when I was young, I was on fire, and I would do this, and God would do this for me, and He would meet this prayer, but, well, where's He at now? God, oh, well, He's still there, He just, I don't know, we just don't have the same relationship we used to. I'm older, I can take care of myself now. Which version do you want your kid to see? As they get older, they want to see, listen, Caleb is the perfect example, is that you just need God. And as we get older, we often say, well, I gotta have this. This is what America tells us. You gotta have this, you gotta have this ready, you gotta have this. That way when you get older, you can take care of yourself. You're retired, you don't have to do anything. You can travel the world and just get by on this check that the government's going to give you. Caleb was 85 and he was still fighting for his own land. Hebrews chapter 12 tells us about a race, and he tells us it's called a race of endurance. And he says, let us run with endurance this race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Right? It is Jesus, not Jesus plus anything else that you're going to need when you die. I'm going to end with this. I want to show you one more little neat little snippet. In Joshua chapter 15, next chapter, Caleb's fighting for his land. He's taking over his land. He's fighting. And look in verse 13. Here's Caleb again, and he says this. Or actually, here he drives out the people. He takes it over. He drives out 3 sons of Anak from there. This is Caleb, still 85 years old. And then this is what he says in verse 16. He gives a scenario, a reward. He's like, anybody that attacks this Kirjath Sefer and takes it, to him I will give my daughter as a wife. So, this man by the name of Othniel, right? He says, he's the son of Kenaz, the brother of Caleb, so that's his nephew, which is kind of weird because he's marrying his cousin, but this is the old time, so let's just not even get into that right now. So, Othniel, he said, he comes to him, and that she persuaded him to ask her father for a field. So she dismounted off. Caleb said to her, what do you wish? She said, give me a blessing, since you have given me land in the south. Give me also springs of water. So he gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. So Othniel, he goes and takes this land. Right? Othniel, he is Caleb's nephew. Othniel was inspired by Caleb, seeing Caleb live out his days, still ready to fight, still trusting God. And Othniel says, all right, this is the kind of man I want to be. Look. You don't have to turn there unless you just really want to. In Judges chapter 3, right? In Judges chapter 3, the next book, Judges chapter 3, that this is many years later, that the people of Israel were doing wrong. They had turned their back on God. They were serving other gods. Othniel, still stood up for God. It says that the children of Israel cried out to the Lord, and the Lord raised up a deliverer for the children of Israel, and Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged. He went out to war, and he delivered, and his hand prevailed over the enemy. And then the land had rest for 40 years. Caleb left an impression on Othniel that when things got hard and when he knew how to stand alone, he said, "Oh, my uncle Caleb, he never doubted God, and if we stand with him, he'll give us victory." Right? Aaron, will you come up with and help me close? I want to close like this. This has a great deal to do with us being Caleb, right? But if I can, I want to speak to you about what you leave behind. What you leave behind. Okay? When your children will look at you as they get older, right? I know that right now they might be young and they're dumb, right? They just think you're awesome no matter what you do. Right? When they get older and they see other people, how they behave and how they act and how their parents treat them, they get smart. And they're like, "Man, my parents didn't treat me like that. My parents didn't do that to me. My parents were like this. My parents were like that." Right? And they're going to, and I know it's not fair, but they're going to kind of judge you against every other parent. And I want you to think about, what are you leaving them? What are you giving them as a role model, as an example? What are you imparting into them? Are you showing your kids truly that all you need is God? Or are you showing your kids God's good, but it's really nice to have all this other stuff too? And I'm not preaching, I'm not telling you can't have stuff, okay? No, I'm just saying, what are you trusting? What is your faith in? It's hard, but I don't want my kids to never know the fired up version of my spiritual self. Right? I don't want them, you know Portsmouth and the flood walls, and we see how great it used to be. That's what our town is known for. This is how good it used to be here. Right? I'd rather see a Portsmouth that's alive and well and thriving today, just not what it used to be. And I don't want my kids to do that with me. Now, I remember my dad when I was little. I remember he used to do this for God, and he used to trust God, and he used to pray, and he used to show us this thing. Now that we're older, we don't see that in him anymore. All we see is his stuff and this, and he just, everything's about what he does and what he has, and not about whose he is. I'm going to talk to you as a church. As a church, what are we going to leave behind? These kids that are coming, what are we going to pour into them? Are we going to show them what it's like to truly worship and to truly love God? Or are we just going to let them determine what kind of people we are? Are we going to let the majority say, this is what's acceptable? This is what's smart. We can't conquer them. God, I pray for your Holy Spirit, the same Spirit that would help Caleb to stand up when everyone else is saying, it's not smart. It's not good. We're not going to win. That God will say inside of us, I'll be with you. I've already taken out their defense. All you got to do is go take it. Fight for it. Unless someone cares a whole awful lot, it's just not going to get better.